It's really warm in here. Actually, I probably could remove some clothes. That's a way to start a video. Hello, my name's Elizabeth. Let's talk about books. So if you watched my update video, you will know. And if you didn't watch my update video, I'm about to tell you. I bought some books. This is actually not a thing that I do, not a thing that I've ever really been able to do because I haven't had the disposable income for books, but also because my reading for the last decade has been on a Kindle and more recently audio. But this year I made it my mission to buy real books because they're sexy, because I want them, because I want this in my whole house. So purely materialistic of me. I wanted to have a book to talk to you and hold it up and say, check out this sexy book. So that's what I did. I went on holiday and I thought, let's buy books. So I did, and then I remembered afterwards that there is still a weight limit of your baggage on the plane, and that was a scary moment. And then I got some news that I had to have some major surgery, and so then I was so scared. So then I bought more books to make myself feel better. So I've got like and I had a birthday. So, and I got books for my birthday too. So there's like there's a giant pile. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 things in this pile. And more on the way. I'm not ashamed. I'm so excited. So I thought what I would do is I would just go through my pile, share it with you, and maybe read the first sentence or the first paragraph, and then we can get an idea of the vibe. I'm really quite warm. The windows are open, so if you hear things, that's that. Ash's computer is on over there, and I can hear it, so I hope you can't hear it. Let's go. All right, so this is kind of in order as I picked them up. There's a bookstore. My holiday was in Hobart, so I went to a bookstore called Cracked and Spineless, which is a new and used bookstore. If you on Facebook, they're particularly interesting and snarky. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but that's, I think, where they've gained a lot of traction is their social media presence. Anyway, I went there determined to buy something, and what I was determined to buy was actually books for Kidling. She wanted a specific series of graphic novels, so I was on a hunt for these books basically. And I walked in, I said to the guy, I'm after these 2 books. He had 2 of them in the perfect condition secondhand pile. So that was fate, wasn't it? So that's Five Nights at Freddy's. I bought those for Kidling, but this is what I bought for me. A Brightness Long Ago, Guy Gavriel K. Now, I've read this. And I have... Oh, I didn't even show you the pile. Oh, I was just so excited to get into it. This is the pile. That's not the pile. Guy Gavriel K is... that one. That one. They're there. The covers are similar. Because they're set in the same time period. So this one's A Brightness Long Ago. That one is called A Children of Earth and Sky. I can't reach and get it for you because my body doesn't contort in that way while I'm healing. So yes, I've absolutely read it. Not my fave, but I feel like it needs another reread because a third one set in this time period is coming out this year. So this one needs another read. But let's go with... Oh, it's got a blurb from Brandon Sanderson, the greatest living author of epic fantasy. Oh, there's like a whole dramatis personae. Oh, you don't get this when you read on Kindle or on audio. All right, let's go. First paragraph. And men no longer young in a large room at night. There are lanterns and lamps, torches in brackets, a handsome table, tall shuttered windows, paintings in shadow on the walls. He is not alone. Even so, he finds his mind turning back to when he was indeed still young. We all do that. A scent carries us, a voice, a name, a person who reminds us of someone we knew. This was in the second-hand pile too. Now, Damon Young is somebody that I follow on Twitter. He's a philosopher and an author of many genres. And he has a couple of books that I was interested in picking up. The Art of Reading. There's one that's like philosophy and sex. There's one about gardening. But of all his books, this seemed like the one that I would be most interested in reading. And it was on that second-hand pile with those ones for Kidling. So I grabbed it. Damon Young, The Art of Reading. To my right is a small stained pine bookcase. It contains, among other things, my childhood. Oh, right in the feels. Oh, I'm so excited to read that one. Next up was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, still in Cracked and Spineless. Because of this book, I'm going to record a video on how I keep track of my books. That's probably the next video you'll see. Because I bought this, I was so excited to finally pick up a real copy of Elantris, and then I came home, right over there in the corner, that one, that's Elantris. And I've done this with so many Sanderson standalones. I have a few that need to go to a good home. So anyway, let's read the first paragraph. Oh, this one's long, just like all Sanderson novels. Prince Raoden of Aralon awoke early that morning, completely unaware that he had been damned for all eternity. Still drowsy, Raoden sat up, blinking in the soft morning light. Just outside his open balcony windows, he could see the enormous city of Elantris in the distance, its stark walls looming over the smaller city of Kay, where Raoden lived. Elantris's walls were incredibly high, but Raoden could see the tops of black towers rising behind them, their broken spires a clue to the fallen majesty hidden within. This is Sanderson's first novel. It's definitely a debut novel. Could use some, some tightening. Definitely readable, and it's a standalone, so you don't have to commit to like a 10-book series. This one I bought because the title, Monsters in the Anglo-Saxon World, Basilisks and Beowulf. And I thought, why not? So this is non-fiction about monsters in the Anglo-Saxon world, I imagine. Let's read the introduction. Oh, because it's academic, it's going to have, or at least pop history, it's going to have less catchy introduction. The Anglo-Saxon period lasted around 700 years, from the 5th to the early 12th century AD. With so many changes and events taking place in that time, the task of the historian is unenviable. Moreover, the vast majority of voices that have survived are those of the cultural elite, which means we must be extremely careful when talking of the defining beliefs and character of the Anglo-Saxons more generally. With these limitations in mind, let us briefly review what we know of the period as a whole before examining the importance of monsters to such a long, rich and varied culture. I love that. Probably happens in science books too, although I don't read many pop science books. You've got to say, okay, these the limitations historians work within. Please bear that in mind. We can't actually know. Hopefully an interesting addition to my non-fiction shelf. Next, I went to... There's a bookshop, an independent bookshop in Hobart called Fuller's, and I did go there, see my evidence, but that was for Kidling for that Five Nights at Freddy's book. But I did go to Dimmick's as well, because bookshops. And I picked up Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I read this book in 2020 and I loved it. I listened to it and I loved it. It's one of those books where, not to be spoilery, but the historian is the hero. And I love that genre. Guess why? It is about, not to give too much away, but it's about spiders. And it's beautiful and I loved it. Let's read the first paragraph. Oh, it's long too. Oh, but it's just the first sentence isn't enough. All right. There were no windows in the Bryn 2 facility. Rotation meant that outside was always down, underfoot, out of mind. The wall screens told a pleasant fiction, a composite view of the world below that ignored their constant spin, showing the planet as hanging stationary still off in space, the green marble to match the blue marble of home 20 light years away. Earth had been green in her day, though her colours had faded since. Perhaps never as green as this beautifully crafted world though, where even the oceans glittered emerald with the phytoplankton maintaining the oxygen balance within its atmosphere. How delicate and many-sided was the task of building a living monument that would remain stable for geological ages to come. Highly recommend if you're okay with reading about spiders and culture. This one I was specifically looking for. I was on the hunt for it because it has just stuck with me since I read it last year. This is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is the hardcover version because that's all that they had. This is all I could find. And actually Ash found it for me. And when I got home, I was like, oh, look at that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. In the end papers, a scene from the book. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is the story of a woman who circumstances occur and she makes a deal with the devil that inadvertently causes her to never die. And in exchange, everybody forgets her. So, that's the other end. And this version is beautiful. This version of the book is beautiful because it has in it art. Now, I don't want to give you spoilers, but one thing that happens with Addie LaRue is people can't remember her, but she can leave an impression on them. She can give them ideas, and she becomes like a muse to a lot of artists. So even though nobody remembers who she is, they make a lot of art about her, which is written about in the book. And so that's the art that people in the book are making about their impression of Addie LaRue, even though they can't remember her. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's a really quick read. It's historical fantasy because she lives for so long. And like I said, it really stuck with me, even though it's not particularly profound. I think it just hit me at the right moment. So that was from Dimmicks in Hobart as well. This one, the Embroidered book, I'm currently reading it, taking notes. I saw this in the airport bookshop and I didn't buy it because the airport had clearly had some water damage throughout, and all the books had when you water damage and the pages curl. So I didn't buy it there, bought it at, when I was in Hobart. This one, basically the cover screamed me historical fiction and fantasy, and I don't think I even looked at the blurb. I can't have looked at the blurb because something happened in the book and I was like, oh! And then I read the blurb and it's literally on the blurb. So this is, it's historical fantasy. It's the two daughters of the Empress Maria Therese, I think, of Habsburg, of Austria and Hungary. Maybe just Austria. Anyway, two of her daughters, one becomes the Queen of Naples and one becomes the Queen of France. And in their childhood, they discover magic. So they're determined to use their magic for the good of their countries. And at this point, I'm nearly halfway through. Maybe it's not as simple as that. Really enjoying this one. Let's read the first. It's also not an area, a time of history I know very well. It starts in 1768 and my knowledge of history is much earlier than that. If only Antoine could find a love spell. Is it Antoine? Must be. If only Antoine could find a love spell, a potion, a ribbon, a ring. With the right magic, she'd open Mama's heart and save her sister from marrying the beast of Naples. And then this one, the cover sold me. I don't think I even read the blurb. I just made sure there is no blurb. That's all just praise. The cover sold me and I was like, yep, that's one for me. So I don't even know anything about it, except it's, I think, again, historical fiction, fantasy. She is Awake. The Leviathan by Rosie Andrews, that one was, sorry. Getting carried away. This is also one I saw in the airport bookshop and they were all destroyed copies, so I picked it up when I was in Hobart. Then I had a birthday and I turned 40 and I asked people to buy me their favourite book without any consideration of whether I would like it or not. So this is one that I got from my mum. A chunky boy. Thanks, Mum. I will never get through all of that. This is Into the Wilderness by Sara Donati, and it is historical fiction set in 1792 America. Emerging America, they say here. So I imagine because it's my mum, it's an historical romance. That's what I asked for. Let's read the first paragraph. It's long. Elizabeth Middleton, 29 years old and unmarried, overly educated and excessively rational, knowing right from wrong and fancy from fact, woke in a nest of marten and fox pelts to the sight of an eagle circling overhead and saw at once that it could not be far to paradise. All around her was a world of intense green and severe white mountains, a wilderness of deep and bountiful silence, magnificent beyond all imagining. This was not England, that was clear enough. Nor was it the port at New York where she had waited for months for the long trip to begin, nor any of the settlements between New York and Albany. Her journey was nearing its end. So this will be interesting to see how good a representation of early modern America that one is. I will give it a go, but I can't promise I'll finish it. Another book I got for my birthday was from my aunt, and this is actually the book I was expecting my mum to buy, so they clearly have they're sisters, so clearly they have similar tastes. This is Katherine by Anya Seton. This one is Edward III. I don't know what time that is. I'm sure the book will tell me. 14th century. This one will also be historical romance. In the tender green time of April, Katherine set forth at last upon her journey with the 2 nuns and the royal messenger. A journey begins. This one might be a bit more achievable, but also I do not enjoy reading romance, so we will see. Next, this was waiting for me when I came home. Memories Legion by James S. A. Corey. Thank you, Booktopia bookmarks falling out there. This is a compilation of all the short stories in the Expanse, most of the short stories in the Expanse universe. They are all available individually as well, and I've read all of them actually on my Kindle, but it's to go with its brothers up here. Beautiful. And also the last story in it, The Sins of Our Fathers, is a nice, like a coda to the series. If you've read the books, it follows one of the characters that you don't hear about, like that they have a prominent role, then you don't hear about them again, which is common in these books. But apparently there was a bit of fan backlash about it, so they wrote this story, Memories Legion. So if you haven't read the short stories, this is a great way to pick them up. Let's go with the first paragraph of The Sins of Our Fathers, which is the new one in here. The monsters came at night. My pile over here is becoming precarious. This is just all from Booktopia now. This one is Making Australian History by Anna Clark. This is, I think, is it essays? Might be essays about, this is very nerdy and niche, but in Australian historiography, Australian historians, there's a bit of a argy-bargy that happened from the 90s about the national narrative that we tell about ourselves, and it's big. It's called the History Wars in Australia, and basically this is apparently a nice little overview about how that came to be, and so that's definitely keen reading for me, even though I am not an Australian historian, a historian of Australia. I am a historian in Australia, and this is interesting to me. High above the winding Daruban Hawkesbury River, clearly I don't live in Sydney. High above the winding Daruban Hawkesbury River, in a secluded clearing surrounded by agophoras and wattle, there's a sandstone rock platform covered with engravings of animals and supernatural beings. An emu stands over a clutch of 11 perfect eggs. A few kangaroos and faded wallabies, along with a fish and a brush turkey, also lie on the Sydney sandstone, a freeze in perpetuity. Etched boomerangs are scattered across the rock, alongside partial engravings, damaged over time or perhaps incomplete. A series of small track marks, possibly forming the sacred route of an initiation path, travels south to north across the platform, from a figure of Daramullan to his fellow ancestral spirit, the mighty Biame. I've pronounced those wrong, so I'm sorry, never heard of them before. Genre by John Frow. This is, I think, I haven't even opened it yet, in the vein of these books I'm reading. There's like brief overview, sorry, that's close reading by David Greenham. I'm intending to do an English degree at some point, and if I don't do the actual degree, I'm doing some reading around conventions in the meantime. So this one's was recommended as like a defining book about genre. And so I thought, why not? It was in my, pulling out the receipt. It was in my impulse spend limit, so I got it. That's how books happen in my life. This book is about the kinds of genres of speech, writing, images and organised sound, forms of talk and writing, of drawing and painting and sculpting, of architecture, of music, and mixed forms like film, television, opera, drama and digital games. It is a book about how genres organise verbal and non-verbal discourse, together with the actions that accompany them and how they contribute to the social structuring of meaning. Now, that's probably not for everyone, but it sounds exciting to me. 2 to go. The Year of the Witching. How beautiful is that cover with the reflection in? This one I'm not sure about because of the content. It's basically like I say it's like The Handmaid's Tale crossed with The Crucible, but we will see. Basically like witches and persecution of witches, but also persecution and repression of women. It's by Alexis Henderson, by the way. She was born breech in the deep of night. The midwife, Martha, had to seize her by the ankles and drag her from the womb. She slipped out easily, dropped limp into Martha's arms, and lay still as a stone. God, okay. That's triggering. We'll give it a go. It's in the pile now. It's in the list. And the last one, something very lighthearted. Kiki's Delivery Service. This is the new translation. I think it's a couple of years old now. Look at these end papers. So pretty. This is by Eiko, Kadono and translated by... Does not say. Let's find out. The translator is important. Translated by Emily Balistreri. Translator is just as important as the author. Once there was a little town sandwiched between a deep forest and gentle grassy hills. The town was built on an easy southward slope, its roofs the colour of dark slices of toast all in a row. Clustered in the centre of town near the train station were the town hall, the police station, the fire station and the school. It was a normal town, one you could find anywhere. I'm excited to read that one, and it's very small, so it shouldn't take very long. So I've talked for basically 1,000 years. This is my current to be read pile, plus the stuff that I'm still reading on Kindle and listening to on Audible. Of course, some of them I've already read and I wanted to have physical copies of, but there's a few there to be like getting my teeth into. So I'm excited for that. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you have suggestions for books that I should add to my cart, please let me know because I'm really enthusiastic about reading this year. And I hope that you are too. See ya.